Hi everybody, in this video we're going to dive deep into the Sega Master System. I'm going to share lots of interesting information, maybe some of it you didn't know, including some secrets and how this name came to be and so much more. So let's begin. So first of all, what is the Sega Master System? The Sega Master System, or SMS for short, is an 8-bit home video gaming console belonging to the third generation of consoles manufactured by Sega. It was created by Sega as a direct competitor to the dominant Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES. The Master System was originally the Sega Mark III, an upgrade to the SG-1000 series, which was first released in Japan on October 20, 1985. The Master System name and design were used for the revamped export model released internationally. When the Sega Master System was released? Well, the console was released in segmented by region, as the Sega Master System evolved from the earlier hardware in Japan, starting with the Sega Mark III, which launched on October 20, 1985. The completely redesigned version, known internationally as the Sega Master System, followed in major Western markets the subsequent year. It debuted in North America, in the US in 1986, with specific launch dates often cited as June 1986 or September 1986, as an initial price of $200. The European market received the Master System next, launching in 1987, often specified as August 1987 or September 1987. The Japanese market itself saw redesigned, upgraded version of the console, officially called the Master System, released later on October 18, 1987. One of the sources that I found mentioned that it's actually included built-in FM audio and 3D glasses support. So finally the console arrived in Brazil in September 1989 when it found massive long-term success. Now the Sega Master System operates using an 8-bit Zilog Z80A CPU running at approximately 3.58 MHz. System function is controlled by a small BIOS ROM that serves as a boot manager when the console is powered on. The console uniquely supports two media formats for storing game software. There's the ROM cartridges that fit into the top slot. They were the standard medium and contain basically the bulk of the game library. Cartridges could hold up to 4 megabit, 520 kilobytes of code data, or more using memory mappers. The physical shape and pin count of export 50-pin and Japanese 44-pin cartridges created the form of regional lockout. Now the Sega cards, this thing credit card size media slot into a front port. These were initially intended to be cheaper distribution method, but were limited to a maximum capacity of 256 kilobit or 32 kilobytes, and the card slot was also essential for connecting the adapter for the Sega Scope 3D glasses peripheral. So when booting up, the internal BIOS checks the media slots, usually prioritizing the Sega card, then the cartridges for a valid game header, commonly verified by a string, which is Team or Sega. However, newer cost-reduced models like the Master System 2 that was released in 1990 omitted the card slot entirely, rendering them strictly cartridge-only and incompatible with the 3D glasses. So how many games in total this gaming console has? Well, the total gaming count for the Sega Master System, include the Japanese Sega Mark III, generally ranges between 312 and 318 games titled released worldwide. Some estimations place the overall library higher at around 360 official games or approximately 384 games for some other resources. But basically it's around the 300s. So the game distribution was also highly polarized geographically. For example, in the US, it received limited library of just about 100 games, which contributed to the console's failure in the market. The PAL region, Europe, had a much larger and critically successful library, receiving over 300 licensed games. So the total count for the US and PAL regions combined is around 273 games based on my research. Brazil saw the greatest success, where the system is still produced today, But as mentioned on the website XDA developer in that article, and I quote, in Brazil, the Sega Master System lives on as a licensed ROM-on-chip console. It's basically like a self-contained emulator. And it's preloaded with 132 classic games. Also, Brazil received 22 exclusive games developed by the distributor Tectoy, including unique ports like Street Fighter II Champion Edition, which is this localization effort resulted in games that replace core Sega characters with popular Brazilian comic on TV characters. Now, why the console failed in North America, Japan, but found commercial success in Europe and Brazil? Well, this happened due to the market timing, competition, and distribution policies, including pricing. The console failed in this NTSC region primarily because Nintendo had already established a dominant monopolistic position. The NES or Famicom launched in Japan in 1983 and North America in 1985. By the time the Master System launched in North America in 1986, Nintendo already had a firm grip on the market. Nintendo's licensing policy mandated that third-party developers were cautious of upsetting the market leader could not release their NES titles on competing platforms. And this severely limited the Sega Master System game library in the US and Japan. Another thing is just poor marketing and distribution in North America, where the fledgling Sega of America initially struggled with marketing. Later, Sega sold the distribution rights to Tonka Toys in 1987. Now, Tonka lacked experience in console market and blocked the localization of several popular Japanese games, further keeping the software library. The Sega Master System sold only around 1.5 million to 2 million units in North America. And also in Japan, the original Mark III console sold poorly, as Nintendo has again attained a staggering of 90% market share with the Famicom console. The Mark III, the Master System, combined sold only around 800k to 1.5 million units in Japan. However, it had great success in Europe and Brazil. This is again the PAL regions, which largely because Nintendo's dominance was weak or in some areas non-existent. In Brazil, for example, Tectoy engaged in innovative marketing and heavily localized games by translating titles into Portuguese and even creating new versions of games based on popular Brazilian characters and franchises. What are the must-play games for the system? Well, there are quite a few of them, but we're going to name a few. Alright, so one boy with the long talking, you can actually see the list here and you can check them out yourself. Of course, different sources will give you different results. How does the Sega Master System compare to the Nintendo Entertainment System in terms of color, CPU, memory? Well, generally speaking, the Sega Master System was technologically superior to the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, when it was initially released, having been developed later than the Famicom from 1983 hardware design. Now, the Sega Master System utilizes a 8-bit Zilog Z80A CPU running 3.58 MHz, which was approximately double the clock speed of the NES 8-bit Rico processor, which ran at 1.79 MHz. For memory, the Sega Master System boasted 4 times the RAM, 8 KB RAM versus 2 KB RAM. And 8 times the video RAM, 16 KB VRAM versus 2 KB VRAM. So graphically, the Master System had a clear advantage, capable of displaying 32 simultaneous colors from a palette of 64 colors, significantly more vibrant than the NES typically display between 24-25 colors from the palette of 52. Now, despite the raw hardware age, the NES often matched or surpassed the Sega Master System in later games due to the use of powerful mapper chips embedded in cartridges to expand memory and graphical capabilities, a technique the SMS generally did not utilize. Now, what are the rarest games that especially collectors cherish and want to obtain? So here is a list that cross-reference from various sources. Make sure to pause and check it out yourself at your free time. Now, a few words about the Japanese FM sound chip. This is the Yamaha YM2413, which is a sound chip that was built directly into the Japanese Sega Master System console. It was not included in the North American and European versions. It's improved game audio by adding 9 extra sound channels on top of the console standard audio. This allowed for much richer, more complex music and sound effects that could imitate real instruments like drums, bass, and piano, instead of just producing a simple beeps of the standard sound chip. Regarding peripherals, not only, by the way, for the Sega Master System, some also adapters to play Sega Master System games on other consoles. You can see the full list here, like the standard controller, adapter for the 3D glasses, the control stick, the arcade control stick. Personally, many of them I haven't used at all, but again, this is a list, so you might want to check it out if you want something to experience something else that you haven't experienced in the past. This is a nice list to go over. Now, what about built-in games? The Sega Master System features games built into the system's internal BIOS ROM chip, allowing players to start immediately without inserting any media. The specific game varied depending on the console model and region. For example, the early Model 1 consoles sold internationally often included a multi-game pack-in of Hand-On and Safari Hunt built into the system. These initial models also contain secret maze games, it's called Snail Maze, hidden within the BIOS, accessed by simultaneously holding the up direction button 1 and button 2 upon power up without cartridges inserted. Later models, notably the redesigned Master System 2 released in 1990, typically had a single larger game built in, most often Alex Kidd in Miracle World. Now later on, due to memory constraint, the Snail Maze game was removed from the BIOS of these later consoles. In Brazil, for example, modern licensed Master System variants are currently sold as emulation boxes containing up to 132 built-in games, as I mentioned earlier. But these ones actually don't accept any cartridges, just have those games built in. Now, why this console is called how it's called, the Sega Master System? Well, it's originated as a rebranding of the console originally launched in Japan as the Sega Mark III. Since Sega had not released its first two consoles version in the West, the name Mark III was confusing and was dropped from international release. So the name Master System was reportedly chosen during brainstorming session by Sega employees throwing darts at a whiteboard listing various names. It ultimately became the definitive name after the deluxe console package called the Sega Master System, which include a light gun, which proved to be a more popular model over the basic, which was called Sega Base System. So actually in North America, the console was sometimes advertised merely as Sega System. And eventually the Master System eventually became the standard de facto name for the console due to the success of the deluxe bundle. The name officially stuck worldwide when the simplified Master System 2 was released. And that's how the name of this console was born. Yeah, so as you can see, this is a very interesting console. Again, this is a console that I played on instead of the NES back then. Now, despite its struggles in NTSC region, the Master System international strength secured its financial viability and laid the technical groundwork for its successor, of course, the Mega Drive and Genesis. A console that created so many fond memories of gamers who still love this console until this day. Thanks for watching.